The top stories tonight in Y News. The Philippine National Police will look into the supposed reports of sabotage in the conduct of the May 9 elections as claimed by presidential candidates.
A group of teachers called for the suspension of the Department of Education's directive requiring the mandatory physical reporting of teachers in schools under Alert Level 1.
6 days after Tropical Storm Agathon struck and with a death toll at 167, the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council is mulling the termination of search and rescue operations.
And for news abroad, Ukrainians continue to defy Russia's surrender or die demands in the Port City of Mariupol.
Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is the 18th of April 2022. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the Philippines and in other parts of the world. I am William Pio.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I am Elsie Marcos.
First in the news, the Philippine National Police, or PNP, will look into the alleged destabilization plot for the upcoming May elections as claimed by presidential candidates. Leah Ilagan has the story.
The Philippine National Police has not encountered any reports so far on any threat for the May 9, 2022 elections. This after presidential candidate Senator Panfilo Lacson, along with Manila Mayor Francisco Isko Moreno Dumagoso and former National Security Advisor Norberto Gonzales, confirmed he has received reports of election sabotage but are still validating them. PNP Chief Police General Junardo Carlos said they will coordinate with Senator Lacson over their claims.
Well, we'll get the details from Senator Lacson para matingnan namin. So far, I have si Valdeleon's monitoring for the election. Wala naman tayong major reports o ganun eh. So we will get it from Senator Ping Lacson.
The police would also probe the claims that presidential candidate Vice President Leni Robredo allegedly issued a statement saying there would be chaos if she loses the elections. Meanwhile, the PNP is also gathering information received by President Rodrigo Duterte on the alliance of a well-known opposition group to the CPP, NPA, NDF.
What we can assure the public is we're ready for it. Huwag ko kayong mag-alala, nakahanda naman ho kami.
By next week, the PNP will begin deploying their admin staff as augmentation force to secure the elections. Leah Ilagan, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, classes will be suspended in all public schools nationwide from May 2 to 13. In a statement, the Department of Education, or DepEd, said classes in all levels will be halted for 2 weeks to give way for the teachers' electoral functions for the upcoming 2022 national elections. Meanwhile, teachers who don't have electoral duties are still expected to report to schools on the said dates. The DepEd Election Task Force has earlier disclosed at least 320,000 teachers have already been included as election board members for the elections.
Meanwhile, presidential candidate Senator Ping Lacson is not personally calling for Vice President Leni Robredo to withdraw from the presidential race, according to his running mate, Vice Presidential candidate Senator Tito Soto III. Eileen Cerudo will tell us why.
Presidential candidate Manila Mayor Isko Moreno clarified that the call for Robredo to withdraw her candidacy is his own statement.
Now we're calling. Be a hero. Withdraw. Lenny.
Now, I cannot say we, I am calling for Lenny to withdraw. Kasi whatever you're doing is not effective against the Marcos. Withdraw, come and join us. Join us.
This was said during the joint press conference of Moreno, Senator Ping Lacson, and former National Security Advisor Norberto Gonzales on Sunday. According to Vice Presidential candidate Tito Soto III, Lacson and Gonzales are not connected with Moreno's own statement.
Siya lang.
Yeah.
Sabi niya, siya, sarili niya. Wala kaming connection doon. Ako, definitely, dahil witness lang ako doon eh.
Soto adds the gist of the joint statement is to reiterate to the public that none of the presidential candidates will withdraw from the race.
It's not true. Senator Lacson never said anything to that effect. As a matter of fact, if they listened closely, Mayor Moreno said, ito, akin lang to ha. Wala ito sa kanila. Alam mo, imbis na kami pinag-withdraw mo, ikaw mag-withdraw. Sabi ni Moreno, sabi ni Mayor Moreno. Ano kinalaman nila Gonzales at nila Ping doon?
The senator also reiterates that they are not supporting or calling any candidates to withdraw from their elections. He also scrutinized the question of the media during the joint press conference, saying that the questions asked were not related to the joint statement of the three presidential candidates.
I was surprised at the question of the media. Parang mga planted eh. Parang planted yung mga questions eh, na papunta kay BP Lenny at saka kay Bongbong eh. Actually, na-concentrate kay BP Lenny. Wala doon yun sa joint statement.
Meanwhile, in an official tweet, Lacson said there would have been a unification if it started with the right intentions, and that the party who initiated it has no hidden agenda. Eileen Cerudo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Presidential candidate and Vice President Leni Robredo is seemingly unfazed by calls to withdraw from the race as she continues her campaign trail in the country's most vote-rich region. Harleen Delgado will tell us why.
21 days before the May 9 elections, presidential candidate and Vice President Leni Robredo continues her campaign in the country's most vote-rich region, Calabarzon. This amid the recent tirades of other presidential candidates against her and calls for her withdrawal from the race. In a campaign rally in Infanta, Quezon, Robredo acknowledges the opposition of some sectors in the Kaliwa Dam project and vows that proper consultations will be done.
Meron pong tinatawag na yung mga maapektuhan na mga katutubo, kinakailangan yung kanilang free, prior, and informed consent. Anong gustong sabihin nun? Na dapat sinasangguni sila, dapat kinukonsulta sila, dapat may pagpahintulot sa kanila. Kung hindi po ito gagawin, ang aking magiging pangako sa inyo, walang matutuloy na proyekto.
She also went to Polillo Islands, where she held a multi-sectoral town hall meeting with various groups. In the 2016 vice presidential race, Robredo won in the province with over 385,000 votes. On the same day, Robredo visited Marinduque, where she was welcomed by Governor Presbitero Velasco Jr. and other locals at the provincial capital. The Leni Kiko team also attended a campaign rally in Boac. The Robredo ticket will be touring the provinces of Zambales and Bataan tomorrow. Harleen Delgado, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Meanwhile, presidential candidate Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. vows to bring down the price of rice under his administration. Meanwhile, his running mate Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte Carpio wants to increase the benefits of healthcare workers. Nel Maribuhok reports.
Former Senator Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. said in a statement that subsidizing the price of rice will be one of the options he will explore in the first year of his administration if he wins in the May 9 presidential elections. Marcos Jr. plans to bring down the price of rice by 20 to 30 pesos per kilo by recommending a price cap on this staple. But to do this, he cited the need for a regular and thorough inventory of rice harvest in the country. The presidential bet said he would then issue an executive order directing the Department of Agriculture and the National Food Authority to procure rice harvest from local farmers at higher and more competitive prices. He also reiterated his intention to amend the rice tariffication law and make it more local farmer-friendly and stop the country's excessive dependence on rice importations. Meanwhile, his running mate Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte answered some questions during her daily online program. She presented her plans in the country's healthcare system, such as the full implementation of the Universal Healthcare Act, and she vowed to increase the benefits of healthcare workers.
Simulan ang usapan tungkol sa benepisyo at pagtaas ng compensation ng ating mga healthcare workers para maengganyo sila na dito na sa Pilipinas magtrabaho at huwag na mag-abroad.
The BBM-Sara unit team conducted their campaign rally in the vote-rich province of Cebu. Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue, we serve the people, we give glory to God.
There will be no extension of the overseas absentee voting beyond May 9 Philippine time, according to the Commission on Elections. Dante Amento tells us why.
The Constitution prohibits the conduct of elections beyond May 9. Thus, extending the voting period for Filipinos overseas is not possible, according to Commissioner Marlon Casquejo. The idea of extending the polls came after reports that there were delays at the start of the voting period on April 10. In Shanghai, China, overseas voting is still suspended due to the ongoing lockdown amid the surge of COVID-19 infections.
Hindi pwedeng mag-extend sila labas doon sa May 9 kasi that will be a violation of the Constitution. Kasi yung election natin is May 9 talaga, second Monday of May. Etong overseas voting parang special to kasi it will start 30 days before the date of elections.
Comelec data shows almost 2,000 registered voters in Shanghai, China. Casquejo adds they will wait for the Comelec and bank's decision over the issue.
Titingnan natin kung ano yung decision ng N-Bank regarding that one. Sa ngayon, naka-suspension of election tayo sa Shanghai until such time na may lift na yung lockdown. Ang tanong dito, what if aabot ng May 9 yung lockdown? So doon tayo magkakaproblema doon sa Shanghai.
Meanwhile, the poll body is optimistic to have a high overseas voter turnout. Over 1.6 million Filipinos overseas are entitled to vote in the 2022 elections. Dante Amento, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The first week of the month-long election in the Philippine Embassy in Singapore has garnered more overseas absentee voters. Queenie Rivera will tell us why live. Yes, Queenie, good evening. Go ahead.
Good evening, William. Filipinos in Singapore took advantage of the long weekend to cast the votes in the Philippine Embassy in Singapore. Voters flocked in front of the embassy even before the embassy opened and stayed in their queues as the rain poured.
More blessing kasi maulan. Pero okay lang.
Kahit maulan, hindi po kayo
Rain or shine.
para sa yan,
Sa ikagaganda, ikaunlad ng ating bansang Pilipinas, rain or shine.
Boboto tayo.
Boboto tayo. We prefer holiday.
Hindi. Talagang prepare talaga namin
Kasi pag Sunday, mas marami.
Mas marami. Ngayon nga, dagsana What more pag Sunday?
With 2,370 votes on the first day of the election and daily votes ranging from 1,600 to 3,200 since day one, Ambassador Joseph Del Mariaf expressed his hope to sustain its record as a country with the highest overseas voters turnout for the past two national elections. Meanwhile, Mr. Glenn, a volunteer in the month-long election in Singapore, encouraged the registered voters to secure the required documents before coming to the embassy to ensure a smooth voting process.
if maaari po, sa website po ng embassy, tignan po nila yung CLOV doon po doon, yung Certified List of Overseas Voters. Tignan po nila kung nandun po yung pangalan nila, and kung nandun po, sigurado po makakaboto na sila, and pag pupunta sila dito, pakidala na lang ang passport nila, and if hindi po pwede, yung IC po nila. Samantala, if wala naman po yung pangalan nila, paki-email na lang po yung embassy or tawagan po. Andun, sasagutin naman po namin sila as soon as possible po.
The overseas absentee voting in the country continues every day, including the weekends and the holidays, and will end on May 9, 2022. Back to you, William.
Yes, Queenie, how many total votes are expected to be casted for the whole 1 month-long election in Singapore?
Out of 200,000 Filipinos in Singapore, there are 83,229 registered voters. Most of the voters are expected to cast their votes in the last week of the month-long election. Back to you, William.
Yes, thank you very much. Queenie Rivera reporting live from Singapore.
A group of teachers called for the suspension of the Department of Education's directive requiring the mandatory physical reporting of teachers in schools under Alert Level 1. Janice Inhente reports why live. Yes, Janice?
Yes, Elsie, good evening. Teachers complain the internet signal in schools amid the first day of the implementation of 100% workforce reporting on-site on areas under Alert Level 1. Education workers lament the internet is not strong enough for them to hold their online classes, thus they prefer to work at home.
Ang problema kasi, 100% reporting, gaano ba kahanda ang mga eskwelahan para sa 100% reporting na ito. Katulad dito, meron kami internet connection dyan, pero kung lahat ng 129 teachers ay papasok at sabay-sabay na magtuturo online, sigurado ko hindi na kaya.
Tulad ng internet connection, ang mga teacher, hindi naman po talaga isa-isa merong laptop. So kulang po kami sa mga kagamitan para doon. Mas advantage po sa bahay kasi may mabilis kaming internet connection eh. Dito naman medyo limited. Mag-play ka lang ng video, maglo-loading na po.
DepEd Order Number 29 Series of 2022 or work arrangements in the Department of Education during the imposition of Alert Level 1 system for COVID-19 response orders the 100% on-site reporting of teaching and non-teaching in areas under Alert Level 1. Alliance of Concerned Teachers National Capital Region demand a dialogue regarding these issues and to register their call for the suspension of the implementation of mandatory physical reporting of all teachers. Meanwhile, we have to try to get a statement from DepEd on the internet concerns of the teachers, but so far, they have not yet replied to our messages. Elsie?
Thank you, Janice Inhente, reporting live from Quezon City.
There will be no extension of the deadline for the filing and payment of taxes for this year, but taxpayers are allowed to amend their returns until May 16, 2022 without penalties. Rosalie Cos explains why.
The filing and payment of income tax returns for 2021 ends today, April 18, 2022. According to the Bureau of Internal Revenue or BIR, there will be no extension of the deadline to file ITR and pay taxes. BIR Deputy Commissioner Attorney Marisa Cabrero said the agency has been reminding about the deadline every day. However, taxpayers can file a tentative return until today and amend the return on or before May 16, 2022 without having to pay penalty, interest, or surcharge. The BIR had previously moved the deadline from April 15 to April 18 as it will fall on a holiday. Those who fail to pay within the tax deadline will have to pay with penalties, surcharges, and interest. Meanwhile, the BIR is tasked to collect over 2.4 trillion pesos amount of taxes for 2022 amid the government's economic recovery target from the pandemic. Rosa Licoz, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Over 100,000 passengers utilized the Parañaque Integrated Terminal Exchange today. But despite the sufficient number of public utility vehicles, commuters line up in the terminal gates. Asher Kadapan Jr. explains why.
The management of Parañaque Integrated Terminal Exchange recorded about 100,000 passengers per day last week. After the long weekend, they anticipate most commuters to rush back to Metro Manila yesterday and today. With this, passengers experienced queues in and out of the terminal even with corresponding measures in place.
Wala naman tayong problema sa supply ng public utility vehicles. No? It just so happened na medyo nabubulunan kasi nga sa sobrang dami. Inaayos naman natin to as expected, pero of course nanghihingi tayo ng konting pasensya at pangunawa sa ating mga kababayan dahil by the sheer volume talagang medyo hindi maiwasan na magkaroon ng pila.
Based on the data gathered by the PITX, about 84,000 passengers were recorded in the terminal on Saturday and 113,000 on Sunday. While as of 5 p.m. today, over 105,000 public commuters utilized the PITX. To maintain security and peace and order in the terminal, the PITX management remained under full alert since last week. The Philippine National Police, Philippine Coast Guard, Interagency Council for Traffic, among others, also augment their deployment of law enforcers in the terminal. Passengers, however, expressed surprise in the influx of commuters.
Nagulat ako kasi ang dami-daming dati kasi wala namang, hindi siya ganito kadami. Ngayon, first time kong ulit na pumunta dito na ganito karami.
Okay naman, mabilis naman yung yung pila. Mabilis naman siya, maayos naman po.
Ulit-ulitin pa rin kahit mahirap para makauwi lang sa mga ibang pamilya. Sacrifice lang talaga.
PITX management expects that their operation and number of passengers will be back to normal starting tomorrow. Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
And in other news, the World Health Organization cite the importance to focus on the number of vaccinated Filipinos than on the number of COVID-19 cases in the Philippines. The WHO said local government officials should step up to reach the unvaccinated population. Aiko Miguel explains why.
COVID-19 cases in the Philippines continue to decline in the recent days. However, when it comes to testing, only the high-risk groups are prioritized and local government units are not testing as much compared to the previous months. World Health Organization representative to the Philippines, Dr. Rahendra Yadav, said it is important that the government should focus more on unvaccinated individuals than on recorded COVID-19 cases in the country.
We should not rely on the number of cases to know whether we have too much COVID or not. Rather, we need to focus on increasing our vaccination. So in short, whether the numbers will increase or not, only time will tell. But also, we should not focus too much on the numbers of cases.
Dr. Yadav said COVID-19 vaccination is our second line of defense against COVID-19. This is why local governments should do more and reach communities with low vaccination and booster rate. According to WHO, several barangays have yet to reach the 70% vaccination coverage.
The good thing is that the world does not have shortage of vaccines anymore. Bad news is that we are not reaching out to the unreached enough, and that will cause intense transmission as is happening in many countries and create more mutations. So the local chief executives of the places where barangays have low coverage need to step up the reaching the unreached through last mile approach, which basically means using house to house vaccination and close to home vaccinations.
As of April 17, 50.1 million Filipinos are eligible to get their booster shots, of which 12.6 million have reached their booster shots. Meanwhile, in a statement, the Department of Health said the rollout of second booster is currently put on hold until the Health Technology Assessment Council or HTAC has finished their review and final recommendation. The said second booster can be administered 4 months after the first booster dose. The DOH added all vaccines allowed for booster shots will be used except for Gamaleya Sputnik V. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Around 2,500 Ukrainian fighters are holding out against the fall of the port city Mariupol in what would be Russia's biggest victory of the war. Charis Langbowen will give us the details live. Yes, Charis?
Good evening, Elsie. Ukrainian defenders were hiding out in a steel plant in the shattered city of Mariupol, ignoring Russia's offer of sparing their lives if they laid down their arms. The capture of the strategically vital port will free up Moscow's troops to take part in a climactic battle for control of Ukraine's industrial east region of Donbass. Ukraine's Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal stated that Ukraine is prepared to end the war through diplomacy, but vowed that they will not surrender and will fight to the end. Russian Defense Ministry's spokesman Igor Konashenkov stated that all those who will continue to resist will be destroyed, as he announced the latest ultimatum. Meanwhile, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has discussed Ukraine's financial stability and post-war reconstruction with IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva over the weekend. The Ukrainians estimate that the persistent bombing and street fighting in Mariupol has killed at least 21,000 people, while around 100,000 are trapped with no food, water, or electricity. Back to you, Elsie.
Thank you, Charis Langbowen, for that live report.
Social media corporates are being demanded by New York City Mayor Eric Adams to exert more effort in managing the violent content being uploaded on their platforms. Marvi Delfin will tell us why live. Yes, Marvi, go ahead.
William, after social media was linked to the shooting which took place in the Brooklyn subway station of New York City, Mayor Adams called out the social media corporates to prevent such crimes from occurring. The subway shooter Frank James has been charged of deploying a smoke bomb and opening fire in the crowded Brooklyn station, injuring almost 10 people. Later, after his arrest, James was revealed to have expressed violence and hateful speech against people of color and other topics on YouTube, which he carried out in Brooklyn Station. To reduce such events, New York City Mayor Eric Adams addressed the responsibility of corporates to monitor hate online and identify those responsible to prevent further acts of violence. Meanwhile, to bolster the security of subway stations, New York City Commissioner Keechan Sewell recognized the importance of surging police officers in the subway system to take quick action against such attacks. William?
Yes, thank you, Marvi Delfin, reporting live from Australia.
Hong Kong approves the vaccine trials on free China's COVID-19 vaccines, which targets the Omicron variant. The vaccines are expected to be available in October this year. Ruth Bahe will give us the details live. Good evening, Ruth.
Elsie, good evening. 2 inactivated vaccine candidates from China National Biotech Group and 1 from Sinovac Biotech have received approval to undergo clinical trials in Hong Kong. Sinovac Biotech is targeting the highly transmissible Omicron variant. The Hong Kong government was the first to approve its vaccine after applying to several countries. Separately, China National Biotech Group, also known as Sinopharm, will focus on the safety of the inoculations and their ability to generate an immune reaction in adults who have received 2 or 3 doses. According to Hong Kong University Professor Ivan Hung Fangai, Principal investigator of the trial. China has very strong laboratory and pharmaceutical support, while Hong Kong has the expertise and support needed for the clinical trials. Meanwhile, scientists around the world are racing to develop high-efficiency vaccines that can neutralize the highly contagious variant. Elsie?
Ruth, how many types of vaccine are currently available in Hong Kong?
Elsie, so far there are only 2 types of vaccines available in the country, Pfizer-BioNTech and Sinovac vaccines. Back to you, Elsie.
Thank you, Ruth Bahay, for that live report.
The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has issued an emergency use authorization to inspect IR systems for their COVID-19 breathalyzer test. The test is the first COVID-19 diagnostic test that detects chemical compounds in breath samples associated with SARS-CoV-2 infection. The test is authorized to be performed in environments where the patient specimen is both collected and analyzed, such as doctors' offices, hospitals, and mobile testing sites. The test, which can provide results in less than 3 minutes, must be carried out under the supervision of a licensed healthcare provider.
The search and rescue operations will continue for those affected by the onslaught of Tropical Depression Agathon as the reported fatalities rise to over 170. Meanwhile, the damage brought by Agathon to agriculture and infrastructure has reached to over 700 million pesos. JP Nunez will tell us why.
6 days after Tropical Storm Agathon struck, search and rescue operations in Baybay City, Abuyog, Leyte, which was hit by a landslide, are still ongoing to find missing individuals. However, local responders are now assessing to halt operations as movement of the soil in the area continues.
Pinag-uusapan po kung itutuloy pa ba itong operations po na ito kasi may areas po talaga na yung ating mga eksperto po ay nag-aalala kapag pinagpatuloy ng ating mga search and rescue teams yung kanilang isinasagawa dahil gumuguho pa rin po ang lupa as of this point.
The NDRRMC reports the death toll due to Typhoon Agathon rises to 172, while 110 individuals are still missing and 8 are injured. Majority of the casualties were victims of the landslide in Leyte. The NDRRMC hopes that there will still be survivors in the incident, but they leave the decision to ground responders on switching to retrieval operations.
Medyo po ilang araw na yung lumipas kasi after the landslide. Although kami dito po ay hindi pa rin bumibitiw sa pag-asa na marami pa rin marirescue, we leave it po doon sa ating mga kasamahan sa ground para mapagdesisyonan po nila ito. Kasi inaalala din po natin yung kanila pong kaligtasan kasabay po ng pag-alala natin doon sa mga naapektuhan.
Meanwhile, the damage to agriculture left by Agathon amounts to roughly 725.2 million pesos, while nearly 7 million pesos in infrastructure are damaged. However, the department continues to receive damage assessment report. The NDRRMC reported that there are 158,000 individuals evacuated and are now staying to around 800 evacuation centers. Some areas still struggle with the supply of water and electricity. The NDRRMC called on those who want to donate to coordinate with their respective LGUs. Priorities are food, water, clothes, and hygiene kits. JP Nunez, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Arkasang Bahay. As the world faces these trying times amid the pandemic caused by coronavirus, we are inviting everyone to join the global prayer for humanity from Monday to Friday, 9:30 p.m. Philippine time through the social media accounts of members Church of God International.
And before we close, we will leave you with the word giving glory to God from the book of 3 John chapter 1, verse 11. It says, "Beloved, Follow not that which is evil, but that which is good. He that doeth good is of God, but he that doeth evil hath not seen God.
And those are the reasons behind the news, April 18, 2022. Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I am Elsie Marcos, reporting live from Auckland, New Zealand.
And because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.